Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Paul Fritchner here.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. It's Carol at Big Cat Rescue.
And I'm with John Fanta. It is Saturday night right now. John should be somewhere interviewing the best basketball players in the country with the Elite Eight. I should be in Bowie, Maryland with the Bowie Bay Sox of the Baltimore Orioles. But instead, we're at our homes. John's in Cleveland, I'm in Cincinnati, and we're ready to talk about the documentary that has swept the nation and swept the world, #1 in the United States. On Netflix right now, it's Tiger King. John, first, before we get into this crazy business, how's the quarantine holding up for you?
Quarantine's holding up on the west side of Cleveland, spending time with family, trying to just take it day by day like we all are. But that means that we're catching up on series. Obviously, still doing work with the Big East digital side and whatnot, plenty of interviews and different things in the cooker. But this is not a time of year where I'm typically binge watching stuff. I typically reserve that for the summer and the dog days of the summer. But what I came across on Sunday night was one of the craziest shows I have ever seen. It might be the craziest show I've ever seen. The Tiger King rules. And I want to make this clear. Before we break anything else down, the ending of this was sad. It was a downer type of note. For me, the first 5 episodes were just bonkers. And I think that's going to be the focus of our conversation. No one's saying that it isn't. It isn't, unfortunate. But in terms of craziness, could you imagine producing this thing? It was unfreaking believable, Paul.
It was.
I don't even know where to start. I love in the first episode when they're like, "Where should we start?" And everyone's like, I don't know. And that's when you know. It's like, this is going to be nuts. And it kept getting crazier by the episode.
No, I agree. And I think the first thing that tipped me off was in the very first episode, a few minutes in, they're going through the gift shop at Joe's Zoo, and he's taking everybody through the items that he has listed, and they get to the underwear. And Joe goes, "Yeah, I don't wear underwear." And immediately I was like, Joe strikes me as a guy that has never worn a pair of underwear in his life.
Totally. What struck me when I knew we weren't going to reach a point of return in this show was when you're talking to employees. Well, no, it's episode 2. Because episode 2 kicks off with the employee basically having her arm ripped off by a tiger. Joe proceeds to get on an EMS jacket.
He just whipped it out of nowhere. He just threw the jacket on.
Delivers this state of emergency like message to the people in the gift shop. Poses a rain check for them. And
hey, you guys are gonna hear it in the media, so I'm just gonna get out ahead of things right now. We just had an employee get her arm ripped off.
Yeah, which got out in front of it. Really, PR thing there. But Kelsey Safari, I've got her name here. She was the animal keeper. I actually thought that she was one of the smarter people in the show, like with some of her observations about Joe and the zoo and whatnot. That said, you lost all credibility when you went to work 5 days after you got your arm ripped off by a freaking tiger. And that's where I'm just thinking to myself, like, I knew it was off the rails at the start of episode 2, but then you're hearing about Doc Antle and his employees. I feel like we didn't get the finished business with his zoo situation, because that might be crazier in terms of manipulation than Joe.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it is. Like, Doc Antle, no one's on Team Doc Antle. Like, there's no one on that team because he's using people. It appears he's killing tigers too. He's going to court for it. But at the start of episode 2, when that employee gets her arm ripped off and then Joe puts on the EMS jacket, I'm thinking to myself, and he's able to just function. Like, he's saying to himself, "Oh my gosh, the money, this is going to lose me," but then gets right back to work. Like, that is not normal.
Yeah, so obviously we're going to talk about a lot of spoilers here. So for those of you that haven't watched the show, make sure you finish it before you go on any farther. But there's so much to wrap up. I mean, just the overview of between Joe's Zoo in Oklahoma, which is right outside of Norman. Then you have Carol Baskin in Florida, which is we could do an entire hour just on her alone.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have Bhagavan or Doc out in Myrtle Beach.
No, he goes by Bhagavan.
Bhagavan, which translates to Lord.
to Lord. Yeah.
Was that, I missed it. Was that a given name, or did he just anoint himself?
Oh, no, he anointed himself as Bhagavan.
Okay. So you have Bhagavan in Myrtle Beach, and then you have the main character, Joe Exotic, running his zoo in outside of Norman and Wynnewood, outside of Norman, Oklahoma. But Joe had some big guests. I mean, they even showed Shaq visiting. When they showed that clip of Shaquille O'Neal there, was phenomenal.
Puppy teeth, it's just short. They don't bite hard. It's just short.
It's just love bites.
It was phenomenal. This was well produced. Like, this is a story that was never going to have a happy ending, but the amazing thing about it was how many images they got, how much video they got.
They did.
We had an arson, and we had some video from that. Yet we still had video that, like, I thought was going to not be included because it would get deleted, but they still found a way to, because it was set on fire in this show, which is a whole other level of crazy. This show turned in so many directions. And within the show, we have suicide, which is sad, but we have a woman getting her arm ripped off by a tiger. We have tigers fighting animal keepers. We have a disappearance of a husband, and my mind is boggled by this because that could have been its own Dateline, like totally its own Dateline, and I have so many questions about that.
So we're just going to get right into that, John. Carol Baskin, the main, I guess you would say, arch nemesis of Joe Exotic in Florida, outside of Tampa. She has her animal rights people, and she's married to, she was remarried to this guy.
Yeah, second marriage.
Second marriage to this guy, Don. And
right.
Mysteriously, their marriage between Carol and Don just starts to dissipate.
Don, who's double the age of Carol, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah. And the marriage just starts to falter and dissipate. And then eventually Don gives a restraining order to his attorney. And because he knows Carol's whack. He knows something's going down. And then all of a sudden he disappears. And we're, 20 some years later without a trace. Still nothing. Still no leads.
Right. Still no leads. I have to blame Don's family, and they're nice people, and they were very nice. But are we seriously going to keep the fate of Don resting on someone who is absolutely crazy? And I understand why you would be scared of Carol Baskin. Frankly, I'm scared of her after watching this show. Because I don't know what she's capable of. She could come through our TV screens. Having said this, for his daughters to not have any knowledge, but not only that, there wasn't a big level of want. There was a couple of quotes, if you remember this, from people within the show saying that, well, there could have been people that wanted Don gone because he was a cheater, and he did cheat on Carol. He wasn't going down to Puerto Rico to just look at tigers. Let's face it. That was his getaway. That was probably his excuse destination. He couldn't have flown out to Puerto Rico. They made that clear. So he probably is sitting somewhere in a body of water because they have absolutely no leads. Do I think he was fed to tigers? No. I think that's bold. I don't think that Carol would have gone that far. Maybe we're wrong. But I also think you would have had, you would have had murder marks. You would have had some sort of, beyond a trace type of finding.
Yeah.
But to have the husband disappear, and then to have Howard Baskin as third husband, he is whack, man. The picture suggested too. That guy is crazy, and she's just looking for somebody to be her.
And how about Carol holding him on a leash?
Yes, that picture made me. I mean,
But that was the epitome. That summed it up. That was the epitome of their marriage.
This show, more than any Netflix show I've ever watched, had me rewinding because I had to be like, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, you were live tweeting it for John Fanta, John_Fanta on Twitter. For those of you who don't follow, I'm sure most of you watching this do, but you were live tweeting this, and you were tweeting out some of the clips. And I remember you put something, and you were like, I mean, that picture was just, it was ludicrous that he's sitting there like a cat on the beach, and she's got so Carol Baskin, the beginning of the show, one of the funny things about her, just like Joe not wearing underwear, if I remember right, she's allergic to cats because she's got linoleum floors.
Yes, and it has a bunch of cats.
Yeah, and she's got a whole wardrobe. That's the other thing. Everybody in the show wore something with cats on it. Yes. Every piece of attire in the from all three groups.
How are you expected to get taken seriously when you are walking into Federal Hill, when you're walking to Congress, and you are in cheetah pants?
Yeah.
How are you supposed to be taken seriously? I know this woman's fighting for tigers, but my goodness gracious, put on a business suit, please.
No, I'm with you. So Carol allergic to the cats. We going through that about Dawn, but the other thing with Joe, I mean,
how bad do you want Joe to be the good guy in this?
You do, and they set him up the whole way. But even in the end, you still feel like he wasn't the good guy. It felt like there was no good guys.
There was no winner to this. The only good guy in this, and this is deep down into the show, we'll probably talk about this in a separate venture. My good guy award goes to Joshua Dial, the campaign manager for Joe, because somehow that kid got 20% of the minority vote in the Oklahoma governor election. The guy ran for president.
Yeah, so I had two sympathetic characters that I put down. I had him, I had Josh Dial, who got dragged in because Joe Exotic wanted to run for president. That didn't work out, so he ran for governor of Oklahoma, and he somehow pulled off almost 700 libertarian votes.
Unbelievable.
And it was unbelievable. And Josh said, Joe has no clue about politics. This is my campaign. He made that very clear. This is my campaign. I'm doing all the work here. It just was Joe's name on it.
But like this kid, how did this guy get picked up? Apparently he was at either a Lowe's, I think it was.
It was a Walmart. He was at a Walmart. Yeah,
at a Walmart. Fittingly, where we find that the Exotic Joe Zoo gets all their food, which is not
expired.
Yeah, that was a huge takeaway from this show. Is employees at the zoo eating expired meats, and they used expired meats.
And they fought over it. They fought over expired meat.
They fought over expired meats like tigers. And you find, by the way, that in the Tiger King, the kings are the tigers, even though they've been a pet. Said they're the adults in the room. I am fully convinced, if I didn't hear it correctly in the show, maybe I did, that they were using expired meats as toppings for that pizzeria.
No, they were.
Come on! You're feeding people expired Walmart meats.
Walmart meat's bad enough, and then you got to go feed them expired meat at the pizza shop that they thought was a good idea to bring people in.
You don't go, like, I like Walmart, a store that you can get clothes and like those TGI Friday frozen appetizers in the same trip to the store. I like Walmart. I like Walmart for certain things. They've got an extensive selection of the frozen foods and the candies and all that stuff. You don't go to Walmart to buy fresh meat. The two don't go together. So I get what they had to do with the tigers, but my God, we didn't get a glimpse of the living conditions. And frankly, I don't want one because I think it was disgusting.
No.
Joe's room alone was a mess.
Oh, it was terrible. Clothes everywhere. It was disgusting. But the other guy, John, that I thought got just the bad end of the deal was the zoo's manager, John, who didn't have any legs. I mean, that poor guy got dragged in. The quote at the end where he got dragged in off the street, and then all of a sudden he dedicates his life. He loses his marriage, and then he's got nothing. He's left with nothing in the end.
I can't believe, so John Reinke is the zookeeper. He's like the head of the zoo at First Show. Although we don't see him a ton actually doing that, but he's suffering. He lost both his legs in a motocross accident. There's so many accidents within this show that we don't find out about because we don't have enough time, frankly. Joe's brother gets hit by a semi on a freeway, and he just brushes by it. Like, he explains that it's an inspiration to him, but he just brushes by it. So John Reinke, I felt bad for. I think he wanted to be heard in court.
I did too.
Wasn't, and he was really mad about that. Like, him being mad about that kind of made me laugh, thinking to myself, dude, you got out of this. Like, you didn't get scathed, and you're the guy that was supposedly the GM of everything, so you need to go. You know,
and then didn't he go outside and talk to the reporters and sort of just vent?
Yeah, he did a media availability, which he doesn't have a PR guy, but he really should after that, because like he did.
What would have been your first question, John? What's your first question, John Rinke, if you're in that immediate availability?
John, first question, why? Second question, how?
Oh, it was just so off the rails. But I mean, there's so much through each episode, from the elections to Carol and the back and forth. But I think you're right as far as the whole series on a macro level. Go ahead.
If Jeff Lowe doesn't come into this series, it goes longer than 7 episodes.
I agree, because everything that happened in episodes 1 through 5, it was basically just like Carol and Joe going back and forth. And then all of a sudden, just out of the clouds, Jeff Lowe comes from nowhere.
Why?
And he just takes over the whole situation, and then from there it completely devolves.
So Jeff Lowe is basically a con man, for those who haven't watched, or for those who, he's a con man. This guy is addicted to sex. He's addicted to love. He's addicted to everything that Vegas has going on in it. But this guy, when Joe basically, allegedly, which he did, uses Jeff's money, Joe brings Jeff in to save the zoo. I get that. So Joe's a user in that regard. But on the flip side of things, for Jeff, why are you teaming up with Joe in the first place? What convinced you that that was the right idea?
Yeah.
And to follow up on that, I don't feel bad for you at all that you trusted Joe with your money and he utilized it.
Yeah.
You're just an idiot for doing that.
I agree. Yeah. It's just, I mean, and Joe, it was like the first 5 episodes were just so well strung together. And then 6 and 7, it all fell apart. It was like the rising action you learn in first grade. It's just, and then it hit, and then it just completely fell off. But John, the music videos.
She liked the life she had. She loved her big cats and the beauty of being untamed. But then it got a little crazy, it got a little hazy, and the cops said there's something wrong here. Oh, here, kitty, kitty. Oh, mama's got some treats for you.
What is going on with that?
So I did a little reading on the music videos. Obviously, he's not singing. All he did to get the credit for it was he put his voice softly over the top of the vocals that were recorded. And that's how he called it his music. And that was it. But I mean, it's just the character of it. It's just the character of it was just, I mean,
for a guy that at times comes off nothing short of just dumb, it's unbelievable to me that he is as good of a marketer as he was in this show.
Yeah. He
runs for governor, he runs for president. His social media, off the charts. But there is nothing like some of the moves he made. He made a music video with a fake Carol Baskin, which was unbelievable. But my favorite part of this show is, I think, episode 4 beginning with this man, Joe, re-trademarking his mall show series to Big Cat Rescue Entertainment, adding just the word entertainment to what Carol's company name, Big Cat Rescue, was, just so when you search Big Cat Rescue, Joe would pop up over Carol.
And it was so close.
Fantastic.
The entertainment at the bottom was so faint, and they had the same like logo heading at the top.
Unbelievable. I like, just crazy. Now where this gets sad is where it's presumed that he was setting out to kill Carol.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. That was never going to end up happening.
I don't think so either, because I mean, one thing they made very clear was $3,000 is not going to cut it for a hitman. I mean, that's...
Well, come on.
Hey,
Come
here's
on.
$3,000. Go from Oklahoma to Florida and put a hit out on this public figure in Carol Baskin, who's got millions and millions of fans online.
Joe, you feed a tiger for $3,000 a year. You think that you're going to pay that to kill someone?
So the other thing that I wanted to touch on was the lookalikes in this show. I thought Alan, the hitman, was a clone for Cal Ripken Jr.
Yes. Like a hillbilly Cal Ripken Jr.
Yeah.
And how about, what's his name? The other con man in this. The guy on the jet ski.
Oh, Garrettson?
Garrettson is Kathy Bates. Re-showing of Misery. Totally. Just
And
look it up.
Prince Charles is Carol's new husband.
Yeah. Howard Baskin, I have questions for. Tons of questions. Why were you involving yourself this heavily in the lawsuits? Like, at times it comes off that Howard's the lawyer for Carol.
Yeah. I didn't really get it because they kept talking about how much money they were fronting and how much they were fighting this. And it was basically just to prove a point, not really because they wanted to win. It was like they knew they weren't going to win any, they weren't going to get anything out of the settlement, weren't going to get anything.
Howard calling Carol the Mother Teresa of cats is a bigger insult to Mother Teresa than Lent being canceled, basically. And Easter Masses being canceled. Seriously.
I mean,
there were so many great lines in this show.
There were. And you tweeted out, I have it here, the very last line from John Rinke where he said, "I'm involved in the murder for hire." Who would have thought?
Right. And it was all for, I think it was like petting a bear one day, like petting a baby
yeah.
Bear, baby
just,
something one day.
Just because I stopped by a zoo to feed a bear one day. And then he gets sucked down this rabbit hole, and his whole life is gone.
I feel bad for that guy.
I do too.
Now, wait, what we haven't discussed is Joe's sexuality.
Yeah. Oh, and then, but okay, so I have a point on that one. So he has two husbands. He has Travis, who, I felt so bad for Travis. I mean, he comes in and he's got troubles and he can't really find any direction, ends up killing himself. And then Joe is just rude, crude, and socially unacceptable at the funeral. And his mom is having to sit there and endure it. And, he got the bad end of the draw there, I thought. And then you also have it was John, right?
Yes.
His other husband. That never wore a shirt in the interviews.
John is the other. Yep, I'm looking right now because John Finley.
John Finley.
Who wasn't really gay, or at least it comes off that he wasn't gay. But John Finley, not for nothing, man, but put a freaking shirt on. What?
We're just gonna let it all hang out, John.
And so now there's been articles about how he improved his teeth, got his life together. I was like, what? Where was this show?
Yeah. And the other thing too that I found, if you go on to Twitter, Robert Moore _ he put together a great thread. He's a journalist that's followed this case for a while. Yeah. And he put a podcast out. It's one of the top trending podcasts on iTunes right now. And he wrote this long essay about everything. And he detailed some of the stuff that the show left off at the end. But Joe, before John and Travis, married another young straight guy named J.C. Hartpence, who later served time in prison for molesting a young girl and is now serving life in prison for first-degree murder. You're not surrounding yourself with the highest character individuals here.
This is who?
This is a previous husband before John and Travis. So basically, Joe's had 4 husbands. He had this guy who went to jail for molesting a young girl and then is now serving life in prison for first-degree murder. Then in the show, you have him marrying John and Travis. And then after those two guys, after John goes and has a baby with a now partner, and then Travis unfortunately commits suicide, shoots himself in the head.
In front of Dodge Dial, by the way, which is a freaking campaign manager. I'm sorry, I give this kid a lot of credit. I would have walked out that day. Someone killed themselves.
Yeah. And then after that, you have Dylan Passage. So this is number 4. The whole litany of them, a whole long line for Joe Exotic.
Right. And it's clear that this guy, I mean, just.
Yeah.
It's clear that he's using these kids, and it goes on. For me, Paul, I never thought that that it would come into question of him being a tiger killer. That like broke my heart, because I'm like, I want this guy to be okay. Like, I like his energy, because I did. But at every turn, something goes wrong. The question really is, who set the studio on fire, killing a bunch of, I think, alligators?
Yeah, alligators or crocodiles. They killed 8 of them.
8 of them. That's a big moment in the show, because the studio has all this footage, all this past stuff. We haven't even talked about the producer.
Yeah, Robert Kirkman.
Yeah, right. What do you think of him?
Well, he had this kind of gnarly characteristic to him that you felt like he was just so above everything. Rick Kirkham. You felt like he was just above everything, and he was looking at it from the outside, and I got the impression that he had his wits together. I don't know about you.
He had his wits together. I got the impression that he was offered a good amount of money, but that he kind of made Joe the promise. First and foremost, let's get one thing straight here. This was never going to get on linear television. I can't believe that this guy, his selling...
You couldn't do it justice on linear television.
No, and you couldn't, exactly. It's too inappropriate. You can't put this on NBC or CBS for an hour. No freaking way. No. I don't know where you're trying to air it. So again, Joe got... I actually think that Kirkham's to blame a little bit, because he's the one who sold Joe that this could get sold. Rick Kirkham had a long career. It looked like he was crazy as a reporter. I'm sure he, knew what he was doing and setting things up. He was trying to make money off doing a big series, which I'm sure he made some money off this, because he probably provided the producer with a bunch of footage. That said, this is another guy that was, he probably is in a state where he wasn't getting much work. I'm going to guess he's in his late 50s, so he's reached that point in his career where he's out of time. He's nowhere in terms of a network or anything, and he looked at a source of money and said, "Okay, I'm gonna make this." He did say he lived on the property. I want to know where he was living.
Yeah, we never really did get much of a look outside of Joe's room. We never got much of a look at the living conditions, which is, I thought, one thing that would have provided a better perspective as to the whole camp.
We found out about Doc Antle's living conditions. Yeah, we're not going to find out about his sex life because, well, I don't want to know.
Yeah. Well, when I saw he had the soul patch, it's like Joe not wearing underwear. As soon as you got the soul patch and the little long hair.
How about the elephant?
Yeah, he just comes riding in on the like a lord. That's what he wanted. That's the overarching thing in this to me, John, is whether it's Carol wanting control to take care of the animals, which is a whole nother story, that she wants to take care of the animals, but she has a whole farm of them on her own.
Makes no sense.
But
did she charge for admission?
I don't know. But I want to circle back to Carol, because there's one point that we haven't talked about with Carol that is just preposterous. But the overarching theme in this, which is, I guess, goes for anything with big game or fishing or anything like that, is, but especially with tigers and these people that own these big exotic animals, they want the power and control to be able to tame these things and show them off. And it takes a special kind of character to be able to do that and live this lifestyle. You knew that these people aren't just your normal run-of-the-mill Joe Schmo that you're going to see on the street.
Right.
I mean, it takes a special chutzpah.
No, this show was all kinds of crazy. You were looking for a voice of reason. For a second, I thought, maybe Jeff Lowe is the voice of reason to get this thing on track. But then I thought to myself, no, you're teaming up with Joe Exotic. There's no way that you're the voice of reason. And then I hated his comment. Garrettson, I have no respect for. And what the hell are you doing on a jet ski? There's no need for that in the show. There's no need for that in the show, but it was perfect in the show because he's jet skiing through, and I'm just like, this guy, you know. And look, I'm not small myself. This guy is just a fat, you know what? Like, he has no purpose. He's just a loser.
Because he can. It's just, but
a loser.
It's like a microcosm of the whole thing. They just do it because they can.
Yeah, but like the fact that they could do it and make the amount of money. How about they talk about Shaq? Like the spectators, day in and day out. Why are you paying money? Someone said it was their third time.
Yeah, and
I think it was $6.55 for an admission.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it was affordable.
$55.
Yeah, it was but everybody wanted to just be able to go up and feed the Cubs and feed the Tigers. But the one thing I want to circle back to with Carol, Carol is system. Well, that's it. That's exactly what I was going to say. Carol wants to make herself out to be this godly figure who is, you know, holier than thou. And but holier than thou, and I'm just so much better than everybody else. But yet she has this ludicrous volunteer employee system where you work years just to earn a different color shirt. I mean,
here's where I knew all I need to know about Carol's working conditions. They're volunteering just to be around the Tigers. I'm not really sure what they were working on. Some of them were working on Christmas Day, and this is because it's part of the job you sign up for, even though they're volunteering. It was like a caste system in that you graduated and got a different colored shirt. Blue was the best. Red was like a rookie. Here's all I need to know, though. When they went to interview employees to talk about Carol, guess who was standing next to them on camera? Carol. This is like if I asked a player. It would be like me asking, I'm trying to think here. Hold on a minute. I'm trying to think. It would be like me asking Tyreek Jones with Travis Steele to the left of him, you know, how's your coach? And I'm not trying to stir. I'm just saying, you don't ask a player with the coach right next to them.
Yeah.
Because whatever the answer is going to be, it's going to be like he's the greatest coach in the world. You know, and he may genuinely love his coach. I know nothing about the relationship between Tyreek Jones and Travis Steele but I'm bringing it up because we're both Big East, we're both Xavier people. Yeah. It's more the point of like, you're interviewing people right in front of your boss.
Yeah.
It says it all. It's like in Billions when Bobby Axelrod like has to take part in every interview or has to know what every employee thinks. That's not real.
Immediate feedback and, oh my, you better not say anything bad about me or else your job's in jeopardy.
Right.
But she's just completely taking advantage of her employees. But I say taking advantage, they're all willingly there doing it.
I don't get that at all. Which tells me that their working conditions probably aren't bad. They're probably fun. It's probably something that a lot of these people do for fun. And we also don't really get to know how often Carroll's Park is open because it just didn't seem that busy. Like, I don't think – we saw it busy on the one day, but I don't know if it was open every day. Maybe it is open every day. But the amount of volunteers they had on the one day it was open tells me, hey, the show's coming tomorrow. We need everybody, all hands on deck. But to even have a group of 10 people who are willing to volunteer like that with wild animals, I get the love for wild animals, but good Lord.
So
take one look at Carol Baskin. I wouldn't work for her.
So I'm going to rifle through a couple of these tweets here, John, and read off some things that for those of you who watch the show and didn't read this thread yet might be interested in, and feel free to comment on wherever. But one thing in here, the producer, Rick Kirkham, and you may have touched on this a little earlier. After the Zeus fire, when he left, he just said, I'm out of here. That was my retirement in there. I'm out of there. He moves to Dallas. Then in Dallas, his house mysteriously burns down and almost kills him. Then he flees to Norway, and that's where he lives now. He carried this trail with him.
His house burned down.
He moved from the zoo in Oklahoma to Dallas after the filming in Oklahoma burned down that had all his film in it for the reality show. It just burns down, which it seems they frame it to seem like Joe did it. But then he goes to Dallas and his house burns there, and he goes, now he's in Norway.
Are you freaking kidding me? Why didn't that get unveiled on the show? Like,
That's big.
That's big. That's a big element. But that's not the only one, apparently. We've had a couple of mysterious, we have mysterious disappearances. But for Kirkham, I don't know why he got involved in the first place. I'm guessing, like you said, it's for the money. I think he was taking advantage. But by the same token, there was a security camera. And Jeff Lowe would have known that there was a security camera. The longer I think about this, the more I think that Joe's the one who did it. He must have known what the angle was. He must have known what he could do, what time he could get away with it. I don't know, man. Like, this is crazy. Kirkham's house mysteriously burns down. That's ridiculous.
So here's another one. For a long time, Joe told everyone he was dying from prostate and bone marrow cancer. So he raises money from his Facebook fans for his expenses. Then he shows a horrifying picture to this journalist, Robert Moore, as proof. And then Moore later learns he just had an infected prostate, dehydration, and a bad outbreak of herpes. So that's something.
When you have two husbands.
Some people were asking what that weird warehouse James Garretson was sitting in when he was just selling that weird stuff at the end.
Yeah, definitely scamming people.
It was a place he owned or might still own called Tiger Liquidation.
Come on.
Yeah.
I was a loser.
Here's a kicker, though, John. At one point, Robert Moore was investigating the fire at the zoo, and he interviewed the case officer at the Wynnewood Police Department, Brian Gordon.
Yeah.
The next day, Robert got a call from Joe, and he was furious. Joe was saying that he'd gotten a call from Brian that Robert was asking about him. Robert said, "Joe, why is the case officer on the case in which you are a suspect calling you to tell you that a reporter is asking questions?" Joe said, "Well, Brian's my limo driver."
I mean,
so it's
just absolutely ridiculous.
So to wrap it up here, a couple of things to wrap it up. It sounds like there is going to be another spinoff or adaptation of it, and Kate McKinnon is going to play Carol Baskin.
They got a lot of work to do.
They have a lot of work to do to be able to spin off the real thing into an adaptation with actors. But John, overall, I mean, we've touched on pretty much everything, I think, the major points here. But to wrap it up, was there anything else that stuck out to you through your live tweeting experience, or just the ridiculousness of it overall that you felt like?
Oh, well, there's so many moments. But what's his name? The husband dies.
Travis.
Travis dies. Joe's eulogy.
Yeah.
Breaks out into a concert. He's singing. He's got his jacket on. He's dancing. He's going through this huge tribute. And Travis's mom, who I think is a crackhead too and crazy, but, I felt bad for her. She get looped into all this. She's sitting there.
Yeah.
How did Joe have control of the memorial service?
And then when Joe got remarried, he brought Travis's mom on as a photo op, and she was like the only one there. And he just brings her there to get the approval.
How about when Joe tries to blame others, but the Tigers one day are licking his shoe?
Because he said they have perfume on them.
And even Carol steps in, and it's the one time where I'm like, yeah, Carol's right. Because I wanted to hate Carol, but I couldn't because, she's real smart at what she does, but yet I think she might have killed her husband. We get people out to kill her. This show had no winner. And
it didn't.
Almost every show you watch, there's a winner and there's a loser. Nobody won here.
No.
And I need a Doc Antle spinoff. That's what I really need.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was a lot that was left unanswered, but part of the problem for leaving stuff unanswered is that it's relatively new in a sense of all this stuff just wrapped up within the last year.
Yeah.
I mean, Doc Antle's zoo in Myrtle Beach was just raided not too long ago.
Yes. was just raided and hasn't even gone to court yet.
Yeah. So there's still a lot. I mean, I don't know if they had waited another year or so to release this, if there really would have been that much more to add on. Because really in the next year, all that would happen is you add on an extra 10 or 15 seconds to the end of the text scroll that says, here's what's happened since. And if people are that interested like us, you go online and you find it and you read it. But I don't think it was really that worth it to throw stuff on at the end. But apparently it comes out today that Joe is just thrilled over the moon. He's heard from jail.
He's basking in the glory.
Yeah, because that's all he ever wanted anyway, was the attention. He didn't care how. They showed him on the throne. They showed him on his throne. That was the scene. And I went back and watched the beginning. After I was all done, I went back and watched the beginning 5 or 10 minutes before they get into the meat of the show. They summarize everything. And in the opening clip of the show, they show him basking in his glory on this throne. And they talked about how, or the producer, Kirkham, talked about how he just was sit there and watch that clip on repeat over and over.
Yes, that he would watch it over and over. I mean, he was a narcissist. There's no doubt about that. I hated when his parents got involved. That was so sad.
Yeah. He was just draining everybody. He was doing whatever he could to keep it alive. And then once episode 6 rolled around and Jeff Lowe came into the picture, it just all went downhill.
How about Tim Stark?
Yeah, that was the guy that tried to run it with Jeff Lowe, right?
Weird.
Yeah. Well, and then what about, the real bad guy that was bad news, and I don't remember his name, the guy that got out of jail that had the security team that wouldn't even let him into his compound.
Yes, I was just looking for his name again.
I think it started with an M.
Mario something.
Yeah, that guy.
Oh, that guy. Mario Tabra. That guy. Bad news. ZWF Zoo.
That guy was bad news, John.
Not run into that guy. That guy was Scarface.
Yeah, no, that everybody else, they had this mystical, oh, he's bad, but he's not really self-aware.
No, that guy was bad news.
This guy, Mario, he'd been to jail. He'd admittedly been to jail. And
so I was looking at the cast members, which a lot of this recording has been me looking at the IMDb cast, checking, because there's so many characters. But I am so glad that at the bottom of the cast list, they have J.P. Wilson, who was the magician that taught Joe tricks for his mall show. This kid was 14, and I'm pretty sure that Joe was trying to get him to marry him.
It was off the rails. There was just every time you thought, oh, this can't get much crazier.
How about the parade and Christmas and on a freaking float with the tigers and the Christmas lights? I'm thinking to myself, one of these tigers is going to get loose.
I mean, when he's going around to the malls and Carol sends out the people to send thousands of emails to the malls to get them to stop the shows.
Yeah.
Now, here's one thing I was going to ask you. You and I are both from Ohio. Do you remember when all the wildlife got loose in Zanesville? Do you remember that?
But I needed it. Once it came up on the screen, that's where it kind of resurfaced. I did remember it, but then I really realized how big this was.
Yeah, so I lived in Northern Virginia, but my family's here in Cincinnati, and our drive. Is a tiger getting in?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Our drive goes from Northern Virginia through Zanesville here to Cincinnati. And I remember we were coming to Cincinnati right around when that was happening. And there were the signs like on the highway that said live. So as soon as they cut to that clip, I was like, I went through that.
Wow. You have a personal story.
Yeah. Personal connection to driving through the highway of the wildlife. And then all those animals had to get shot
and killed.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. It's so sad. You've got a greater percentage, and it's shown at the end, of tigers in captivity than in the wild.
4,000 in the wild and 5,000 to 10,000 in the United States.
Down to that is sad.
I mean, take out what's in regulated zoos and think about how many. Who knows what is going on? Who knew this was?
A couple hundred.
Yeah, and it costs thousands of dollars to feed them, unless you have expired Walmart meat. Well,
Oh my
John,
God. The Expire Walmart meat will always get me.
no.
The EMS jacket and then the nonstop singing, where I don't know what. Like, this show could have been just crazy without the singing, and then music videos were like the bridges of the show. And then I have no respect for Howard Baskin because I think he's totally going for Carol's bowl of soup, and it's, oh my gosh. I mean, the moments of just like, what the hell am I watching in this show were off the rails.
But just the end of Garrettson going away on the jet ski was the epitome of what are we doing here?
What are we doing here?
What are we doing here?
What we did is have a lot of fun.
We did. Well, that's John Fanta. I'm Paul Fritzner. John, enjoy the rest of the quarantine. Hopefully stay busy. And
you too, Paul. This was a lot of fun. And we need another show like this to be just as crazy. Maybe these reviews will return.
We do. I'm not a huge binge watcher, I must admit. I'm not a huge binge watcher, but this one, I did it in one sitting. I sat down in the afternoon, took a break for dinner, and just powered on through.
That's a lot.
John, thanks so much for coming on.
Paul, thanks so much.
Hope you all enjoyed that video review of Tiger King with my friend John Fanta. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more content coming soon. Of course, the Office review videos and much more. So stay tuned, and thanks for watching.